Hello you guys, welcome back to my channel. I am so excited for today's video. I have another palette review, comparison, and swatches video for you. I've actually had so much fun filming these videos. I also did the Bella Beauté Bark Poison Garden as well as the Danessa Myricks Lightwork Volume 6, and I'm really enjoying doing like dedicated palette reviews. So today I am so excited for the Cosmic Brushes Undergrowth Eyeshadow Palette. If you guys don't know, I tried Cosmic Brushes for the first time at the very beginning of this year, and I've been such a fan of the brand since trying. I just feel like for the price, everything has always worked out really well for me, and their special shades again are just so special in my opinion. So when they were coming out with a green palette with like some hints of neutrals in here, I was like, oh my gosh, yes please, ordering instantly. This is one of the 3 palettes I ordered on Friday the 13th because I literally just could not wait. So I was originally going to just do 3 looks, but then look 2 didn't exactly go as planned. So I was like, I'm going to do a 4th look. The look I have on today is the 4th look that you will see in today's video. So if you want to learn a little bit more about the Cosmic Brushes Undergrowth palette, maybe you're on the fence on whether or not you should purchase it. If you want to hear my review, see swatches, comparisons to some other palettes in my collection that might be quite similar. Natasha Denona Yuka. Stay tuned. First, if you have yet to subscribe to my channel and you like project painting content, palette themed content, or just chit-chatting about makeup, I'd love if you'd consider subscribing before moving on. And other than that, let's jump into the video. All right, the Cosmic Beauty Undergrowth Eyeshadow Palette. This, when I purchased it, it says was $38, but when I looked at the website today, I believe, let me just double check. It says $39. So I don't know if it just went up $1, I'm not sure. You can use affiliate codes with this palette. I used Angelica's, so I will leave her code link down below. You know what, whoever's code you use, just, you know, it doesn't matter, just use a code. Just use a code and save. I saved $4 on this, which brought the total down to $34 because there is shipping protection by route, which I don't think is an option. And that is $2 if I didn't just say. Shipping for me, I live in Minnesota, this comes from the UK, was $15. So I will say Cosmic Beauty's shipping is one of the higher shippings, at least. It could be because I live in the States and it's coming from the UK. So if ever I'm like wanting to order, I try and order like everything that I want. Obviously this was the only palette releasing at the time, but $15 for shipping. So my total came to $51. I ordered this on Friday, September 13th when it launched, and it was delivered to me on Monday, September 23rd. So it took 8 days to arrive to me, which I was actually very happy with. I will say when I ordered the Neutrals and Cool Chills palette, it took almost a month for those palettes to get to me. I don't know if they got lost or what happened with that, but definitely something to note. And even on the Cosmic Beauty website, it does say dispatch times for this palette can take up to 2 weeks. So definitely something to keep in mind if you are someone who does not like to wait for your palettes. I definitely was getting a little antsy when I ordered the previous 2, but I was very happy with my ship time on this. So this Undergrowth palette is a 20 pan pressed pigment and eyeshadow palette with the most grungy, murky, and dirtiest of undertones inspired by nature's undergrowth. 12 soft mattes, 8 dazzling shimmers, and a range of finishes and textures. This palette contains 3 shifty shades, and 2 of those being multi-chromes and 1 duochrome. Right off the bat, I will say the color story and the theming of this, the promotional pictures, I just feel like was so well done. I love the way that this palette is laid out. Like, not only do I love the color story, but I feel like it's just laid out in a way that just makes me feel like, ooh, I want to do this look and this look and this look. Like, it makes me feel like I can creatively create looks, even though I'm not always the best at coming up with looks. I am someone who loves like a grungier sort of vibe. So like specifically like these grungy mattes, I love that we have this kind of pop of like a dirty neon is what I'm gonna call it, because I love a bright pop of neon. And I just feel like there are so many interesting and unique shades throughout this eyeshadow palette. I will also note I've always been a huge fan of Cosmic Brushes / Cosmic Beauty's metallic and special formula, and this palette is truly no exception. These special shades in this palette are absolutely stunning, and they're more of like approachable special shades, if you know what I mean. It's not like this like deep multi-chrome that, you know, might end up looking really funky on the eye. It's not like these bright pops of color that you might feel self-conscious like wearing out and about or wearing to work. Like, I truly feel like this is a very approachable eyeshadow palette if you're wanting to dabble in indie or dabble in like multi-chromes or duochromes. So fun. Before we get into the looks and the comparison, I specifically want to compare this to the Natasha Denona Yuka palette, just because I feel like of all the palettes in my collection, those color stories seem most aligned. And then I have a couple shades from other Cosmic Beauty palettes that may, to the naked eye, look kind of similar, so we'll swatch those against one another. But first, let's get into each swatch of each shade in this palette. Up first, we have Vegetation, which is described as a cool-toned, sparkly, metallic green. Next, we have Herbarium, a cool-toned pastel pea green matte. Then we have Algae, which is described as a light lime green matte. Next up is Fern, which is described as an olive green matte. Wilderness is described as a green gold sparkly metallic. Nettle is described as a dark grungy green matte. Next to that, we have Undergrowth, which is described as a high shine multi-chrome that shifts from deep green to brown to gold. Next to that, we have Murky, which is a dark khaki brown green matte. Swamp is described as a muted foiled brown metallic. Bark is a green black matte. Next up, we have Boggy, which is described as a foiled duochrome that shifts from khaki green to brown. Roots is described as a soft camel brown matte with an olive undertone. Marsh is described as a murky mustard green matte. Lichen is described as a bright, almost neon chartreuse matte. And then next to that, we have Fireflies, which is a vibrant, smooth multi-chrome that shifts from yellow gold to a blue green to a glowing red orange. Clay is described as a mid-toned orange matte. And then next to that is Fungi, which is a neutral muted gold metallic. Reeds is described as a pastel pampas yellow matte. Pampas. Then we have Cordyceps, which is a muted bronze metallic. And finally, we have Sludge, which is a terracotta red-brown matte. Okay, how beautiful were those shades, right? I just like think some of these are just so unique. Like Boggy, I'm like, oh my god, I love all of the special shades. I'm not even gonna keep going. I love them all. Okay, let me grab my Natasha Denona Yuka and let's see how these two palettes compare. Here are these two palettes side by side. They are definitely different, but there are definitely some similarities. So the first similarity that speaks to me the most is the shade Lichen out of the Cosmic Beauty palette. So there is Lichen. And then obviously I think that looks quite similar to the shade Camus from Natasha Denona's Yuka palette. So there's Camus. Okay, I'm gonna turn the lights down so hopefully it helps a little bit. Here is the Cosmic Beauty palette, and then here is the Natasha Denona. The Natasha Denona is almost more white based and almost has a little bit more pigment to it. It also leans a little bit more, I'd say, green, even though it really truly is like a yellow green, whereas this, in my opinion, almost is just like a little bit grungier and a little bit more yellow. So obviously those two actually are more different than actually I anticipated them being. Okay, I also think the shade Marsh looks similar to the shade Citrine So up first, we have Marsh from the Cosmic Beauty palette. Here is Citrine from Natasha Denona. There are those two right there. These two are very, very similar, I will say. And on the eyes, I honestly do not know that you could really tell a difference. I would say the Natasha Denona is maybe just slightly lighter, maybe hinting slightly more like yellow, where this one is a little bit more marshy green. But honestly, these two look very, very similar in my opinion. Clearly it's more about the mattes in this palette that I think are similar, but I think the shade Roots is pretty similar, or looks similar to Valley. So up first we have Roots from the Cosmic Beauty palette, and then we have Valley from Natasha Denona. So there are those two swatched. Very similar, but this one from Natasha Denona definitely has a little bit more pigmentation to it. But if you sheared this out, I do feel like these two would be almost identical. So again, not the same, but also not that different. I will swatch this shade Clay right here, the more orangey shade out of the Cosmic Beauty palette. I'll swatch that. Ooh. My hand was still like a little wet, against, I think this shade, Eoxia, I don't know. I think that shade is probably most similar out of the Natasha palette. Okay, clearly both swatches, not my best. All right, again, Cosmic Beauty on top, Natasha on the bottom. And again, they look different but also similar. I would say that the Cosmic Beauty one is almost a little bit more orangey. However, on the eyes, I do feel like these two would be also quite similar. Okay, aside from that, the only other similarity maybe would be the shade Nettle and Calathea. Although I feel like the Calathea shade from Natasha might be a little bit more teal leaning, but I will just swatch those just so we can kind of see. So here's Nettle from Cosmic Beauty, and then here's the shade out of the Natasha palette. Yes, those two are definitely, okay, different but also similar. Like, I feel like this is just a sheared out version of this, honestly. I feel like maybe the Natasha Denona has a bit more of like a gray base to it, but if this was sheared out, I do honestly feel like those two would be quite similar as well. Okay, and then from the Natasha Denona Yuka, I swatched all four of the like green metallic. So the only shade I didn't swatch was the like silver right here, and I'm just curious. Okay, I want to see how this shade right here, this is the shade, I don't even want to try and pronounce these. Kamoribi. That shade right here, I'm like, I guess most similar in this would potentially be Fungi. Let's see if those two are similar at all. Okay, there is Fungi, and I don't know if you'll be able to tell. Okay, I'm turning my lights down even maybe just a little bit more. So Fungi is definitely more of like a true like champagne bronzy gold, whereas all of these shades that I swatched from the Natasha palette have more of like a green hint to them. I definitely want to swatch both Wilderness and Fireflies next to the shade Plantasia, which is this shade right up here. I feel like Wilderness would be potentially the most similar. Okay, there's Wilderness. And honestly, next to one another, Wilderness looks, I think the difference between these two is Wilderness has more of like a golden base, but still shifts to like a green. Whereas the shade out of the Natasha Denona is a little bit more cool tone and almost has like a silvery pink reflect, and then obviously the green reflect, but I don't feel like those two are too similar. And then I will swatch Fireflies, and I don't think Fireflies is going to be similar at all. There's Fireflies right there, and Fireflies is definitely more shifty, and again has a bit more warmth to it than the Natasha shade. Okay, and then I was just like looking at the rest of the shades in this palette, and I honestly don't feel like there's anything that's very similar to these two. So in terms of the like special metallic shades, I don't find this one to be that similar to the Natasha Denona Yuka palette, but in terms of matte color story, you're definitely getting more out of the Cosmic brushes, but there definitely is some repetition. So maybe if you had your eye on the Yuka and this one, like this one is providing more, But if you have the Yuka and you're like, do I need this? I guess if you're looking for this for like the special shades, I would say yes. But if you just like the mattes, I would say you probably have those in the Yuka. Okay, and then in terms of is Cosmic Beauty duping themselves, I thought the most similar like potential in my collection would be the neutrals, just because there's that green shade in the neutrals palette, the shade Luxe. So let me swatch Luxe from neutrals. There is Luxe right there. And I thought the most similar to this would potentially be the shade Wilderness right here. Oops, can't do that. So here is Wilderness. So up top we have, okay, I'm turning the lights down hopefully to help a little bit again. So on the top we have from the neutrals palette, we have Luxe, and then we have Wilderness on the bottom. And as you can tell, Luxe actually looks a little bit more green and has this like kind of red based shift, whereas Wilderness is almost more of a gold with like a slight bit of green to it. But the one from the neutrals palette actually looks a little bit more green. And then I'll actually swatch Fireflies as well. So here is, I almost want to put Fireflies on top. There's Fireflies. I don't know if that helped at all. Okay, the neutrals palette is almost more of like a red green, whereas Fireflies is definitely more, like I feel like this one is more duochrome, whereas the Fireflies shade is more of a multi-chrome, because we get a bit of green, we get some warm like yellow gold, and then a bit of like a peachiness too. So those two I also do not feel like are the same shade. Like I don't feel like they dupe each other. And then the only other like semi-similarity I could see between the two of these is potentially, and I'm like, really no, but we have the shade Glitz, which is definitely more of like, it's more of like a bronzy yellow to red, whereas we have Quadriceps out of the, okay, those two are probably like, they're not so similar, but more similar than the other two. Anyway, this is Quadriceps. So there's those two swatched right there. This one is definitely a little bit more foiled and intense. I'm wondering if this one is more like, this one definitely has a bit more of like, would you say a bronziness to it? Almost like a fiery orangey bronzy, just a little bit more intense. But honestly, those two are not so far off, but still definitely different. Those are really the only similarities I could find amongst my other Cosmic Beauty palettes. If you guys have any other thoughts on what you think it dupes, let me know in the comments below, and potentially I could do like something on my Instagram, or you know, come back in my next palette ranking to kind of update you on other comparisons that you maybe want to see me do. But let's jump into the 4 looks next that I've created using this palette. Good morning, you guys. We are here to do look number 1 using the new Cosmic Brushes or Cosmic Beauty Undergrowth palette. I'm literally so excited about this because I love a green, and I feel like there's such a good variety of like greens and neutral shades. Like you could definitely do just like an all brown shade using this palette if you like a palette that you can kind of teeter between, like there's a little bit of fun to it, but then you can also wear it like on the day-to-day, like to work and things like that. I just think this is such a beautiful palette. I'm so excited about all of the like metallic and special shades as well, just because Cosmic Beauty's line, just because Cosmic Beauty makes such good shades in general, both mattes and special shades. I'm just so excited. I'm just so excited. I know for my first look, like I know no matter what, I really want to use the shade, is it Lichen? This shade as an inner corner like matte highlight. I really want to do that. I think for look number either 2 or 3, I definitely want to do like a more neutral look, like an all brown look, just so we can kind of see how it goes that way. But I think today maybe I'll do kind of a mix of green and brown. I think maybe to begin, I'm going to use this shade Marsh, which is such a perfect name for it because I was going to describe it as like a swampy sort of shade. And I will say I have laid down, I laid down the Urban Decay Primer Potion, but I have not set. And actually I do kind of feel like I want to set. Okay, I'm gonna take the shade Reeds and I'm gonna set my lids. I do typically like to set my eyeshadow with, oh, what am I thinking? With the lid setting shade. Okay, why do I feel like this almost has like a bit of a green hue to it? Am I crazy? Maybe. Okay, if I look really closely, I swear the shade Reeds has like the slightest green hue to it. Like, I don't feel like that's just like a cream setting shade, but that's okay. We're rolling with it. It'll tie everything together. Okay, so I'm taking the shade Marsh then. Oh yeah, lots of kick up. Wow, there's dust everywhere. Okay, and I'm just going to buff this into the crease to begin the look. Okay, I moved. I have like, you know, if you watch BookTube, you know, like the cart that everyone uses as like their book cart. I use it as like the, almost as like a desk in front of me, because I don't have like anything in front of me when I film, and I literally just like straddle it when I do these looks. So I just moved it to the side so we can try not having as much going on in front of me. Why does that matter? It definitely doesn't. Okay, on camera I feel like the shade's really washed out, but in person I can definitely see it on the lids. I think that's a really beautiful shade, especially it's giving definitely like really grungy vibes, which I love a grungy green look for this time of year. What a perfect palette release for the fall. Okay, I'm having no issues blending that, and I do feel like very frequently, like I wouldn't even fault the shadow if it did this, very frequently I feel like I get creasing right here just because of my eye shape, and I don't even really think I'm getting like creasing there. Now it could just be because it's not a super deep shade, but I do really like the way that that is blending into the crease. Okay, I feel like this is setting us up very nicely for a very grungy green look. I think next I'm gonna take the shade Fern right here, and I'm going to, again, just kind of put this into the crease. I'm not gonna focus this shade necessarily on like the very outer third, just because I'm gonna do something even a little bit deeper there, but just to kind of add a little bit more green. But I'm gonna keep this one a little bit lower than that Marsh shade. Okay, I almost feel like the shade Fern is showing up more like, I don't want to say like Kelly green on the eyes, but it's definitely like a brighter green than I was expecting. That's okay. There's definitely like a murkier dark green we can add to the outer third that I feel like will kind of give me the effect that I'm looking for. But that's just a little bit, maybe a little bit warmer than I was expecting just based on how the shade looks in the pan. The other thing I will say is I know that I showed you guys like there was a lot of like fallout slash dust kicking up when I like tapped the makeup brush. I haven't done that for this shade, and I will say like there's a bit of kick up, but I'm not noticing any fallout on the eyes, which makes me really, really happy. And I will say I also do really like the way that these two shades are blending together. I do feel like they blend together quite nicely. The one thing I will say, I don't know if you can see it on the lid, is I do feel like this green shade is maybe applying just a little bit patchy, but sometimes I'm like, I don't know if it's because of my eyeshadow primer. I just recently started using the Urban Decay primer potion again. This is my second day using it again. I used it way back in the day, and I don't remember like having issues with it, so I don't know, just something to know. Also, I'm like, it could just be me, it could be the brush I'm using. I am then gonna take the shade Nettle right here, and I'm gonna build this into the outer third of my lid, and then I will bring it in some. I'm hoping this adds a little bit more of like a deep green murkiness. Okay, and that shade is laying very, very nicely on the lids. And again, I have not been tapping my brush out with this shade, and there is like a little bit of kick up in the pan, a little bit, but I'm not noticing any fallout on the face, so that is really good. Okay, I'm gonna go back into Fern, and I'm gonna use that to help blend this out. Okay, even to deepen this up a little bit more and to get use out of as many shades as possible. I'm gonna go in with Bark, which is the black, and I am definitely going to tap this one out just to be really careful with it. And I'm gonna tap some of that into the outer third. And then I'm gonna dip back into Nettle and kind of go over top of that shade just to really blend those two together. Okay, I do like the addition of the black just because I really wanted to go for something deep with this one. I'm gonna go back into that green shade Fern and use that to again help just kind of buff everything together. I do feel like that helped to finally get kind of like the depth I was looking for. I am just needing to clean this up just a little bit more on the edge. Okay, I'm gonna take a little bit more of the shade Reeds, which was the shade that I set my lids with. And I'm just gonna try and bring this into like the very inner corner just to kind of lighten up almost like the eye socket just a little bit. Okay, I'm gonna lay down my glitter glue, and it is going to be so hard to decide which like metallics I want to use on the lid. They all look so pretty. I'm just using the NYX glitter glue. This is my go-to glitter glue, and even though I already primed my eyes, I always like to lay glitter glue down before my metallics just to help them pop a little bit extra or a little bit more, and to help them stay and not crease in my lids. Okay, I think I'm gonna go in with this shade Boggy. I love that name. I'm gonna go in with that on the outer. I'm not gonna take it quite all the way out to the corner, or yeah, like what am I trying to say? But I'm going to bring that on like maybe like the inner, like you guys are gonna see. I'll bring that all the way in, maybe like leaving about a third of the lid on each side. Okay, and I think that Boggy shade is so pretty paired with this. I feel like it adds like a little bit of grunge, like it's something a little bit deeper on the lids, nothing like too light all the way across. I actually really like that. I do feel like, I'm wondering if it's just like either my eye shape, the brush I use, but I'm like, I do feel like it's a little bit patchy out in this corner out here. In my outer corner. Okay, I love that shade. I think that is so pretty. Okay, I just ended up using my finger on this eye to apply that Boggy shade, and I like that so much better. I've actually really been enjoying using my fingers to apply like special shades lately. I just feel like it helps it like pop so much more. Okay, then I'm gonna take the shade Fireflies, which is this really beautiful gold to like green and then almost like a peach shift. And I feel like this is going to just tie everything together so well. And I'm gonna take that just on that inner third of my lid and having that connect with the shade Boggy. Yes, I really like that. Oh my gosh, I love the way that that like layers on top of Boggy too. I feel like Boggy might be a new fave shade. Those two, oh, I do really, really like that. I actually think I might bring the shade Boggy out just a little bit farther to this, like right here. Do you see the patchiness right there? That's bothering me. And it kind of is a little bit on the other side too. Maybe not quite as bad on the other side, but I don't like that. I'm gonna see if I can fix that. I'm not gonna go in with the black. I'm gonna go in with the darker brown. I'm gonna go in with Nettle and just see if I can clean that up just a bit. I almost wonder if it's like something with my eye too. I'm just like, sometimes my eyes, they just really like to give me a run for my money. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. It's almost just like, it's now on this side, it's almost just like I can see a very, I don't know, I can see a very clear cutoff. I might just bring Boggy all the way down and see if that helps. I'm like, am I just making it worse? Whatever. we're just playing with makeup. No, I feel like, no. Okay, there's something going on the outer corners of my eyes, but I'm just gonna roll with the punches and say it's okay. I'm gonna take my Urban Decay 24/7 eyeliner in High Vibes, which is kind of almost like a mildew type of green, or like a just deep green. I feel like it'll go perfect with the look. The darn train. I really love the way that Fireflies and Boggy like come together. I really like that. Okay, for the lower lash, I'm gonna mix Fern and Marsh. All right, mixing those two. The thing I'm most excited for, I'm gonna take the shade. Why is the shade I'm most excited for the thing that I don't even know the name of? Is it Lichen? Should I ask Siri? Oh, Lichen. Oh, well that's easy. Especially because I liken this shade a lot. Wow, what a joke. Okay, I'm gonna take Lichen, that matte shadow. I'm almost like, should I lay down? Well, we'll see how it looks without like laying down like a white base. Okay, that is such a fun shade. We know how much I love like a bright neon, and what I love about this is it's not like not quite a yellow, but also like not quite a lime green. Seriously, when is the train gonna go by? Okay, that is so fun. Oh my gosh. It's been like 5 minutes, and do you feel like the train is like angrily like chewing? I feel like it's really rude. I'm gonna laugh when it like comes. I'm gonna get so angry. Anyway, you guys, this is the final look. I do actually really like the way that this look came together. I do feel like now I'm like, okay, did I not bronze my forehead today? I actually don't think I did. Okay, feeling a little bit better with the bronzed forehead, but I'm like, I don't know if I'm loving like my actual like makeup today, but I do really, really love the way that this look came together. We did end up using 8 out of the 20 shades already, which is really exciting. And I will say, I think my favorites, I really obviously love this shade Lichen. I think that's just such a fun matte shade. I think that would be such a fun, like just this on the inner corner, and then a liquid liner, like, you know the vibe. We know the neon vibe that I really love. And then I really love Boggy. I think that's such a fun grungy like taupey green shade. I think that is so beautiful. And then the way that Fireflies lays over top of that, I just think is absolutely beautiful. The way that it shifts, I love everything about how this look came together. Minus, I do feel like I had a little bit issues on my outer, like the outer corner of my eyes. I will say I have noticed that with, it could be the outer corner of my eyes. Like it absolutely could be. Now, do I get that with every single eyeshadow formula that I work with? No, but it is more common, I feel like, than you might guess. Something about my eyes. Also, I just feel like this eye just always looks like my eye shape drives me nuts. But anyway, I like the look. I like the look. I'm really excited to continue to create a couple more looks with this palette, but you guys will have to let me know what you think of this one. I feel like for a grungy green fall look, this works so well, and off of first impressions, I'm very, very happy with this palette. Now let's get on to look number 2. All right, you guys, we are back for look number 2. I'm filming this like at the time of the day when the sun comes in from my window over here, so I hope the lighting is gonna be decent enough. But I'm so excited to dig into this palette again, and for this look I'm definitely wanting to lean into like the more, I'm gonna say, neutral shades, some of the browns, and see what we can do for like a more neutral look if you are, you know, wanting to have this palette to dabble in greens, but you also just want to lean into like a brown and neutral from day to day. I want to see what we can do with that. I really like the way that the rest of my makeup turned out today. I will say I have already set my eyeshadow primer, which I didn't use the eyeshadow primer. Actually, I just laid a concealer down and I forgot to put eyeshadow primer on, but I set that concealer using this shade, and I think the shade Reeds will actually make a really beautiful matte inner corner highlight as well. It does have just like the slightest bit of a green hint to it. I think that would make a really beautiful inner corner highlight. But what are we gonna start with today? Okay, I'm gonna start by taking this shade right here, which is the lightest brown in the shade, and this is the shade Roots. And I am just going to kind of blow this out into the crease. Whoa, I had way too much on my brush. Ooh, hopefully we can clean this up. Okay, I'm gonna use a different brush. I really don't wanna have to wipe my eyes off and start over, so I'm hoping that we can just get that one to blend out. And it seems like it's sticking a little bit. I'm gonna keep building into the crease, and then I will try and use that Reeds shade to just buff out the edge. I cannot find my NARS smudge proof eyeshadow base right now, which is like my go-to. So I'm like, ugh, I don't like using, I mean, today I just used concealer. That kind of happened by accident, but I'm just curious if the like kind of patchiness from look number 1 on the outer corner is like my eyes. Is it my eyeshadow primer? What is it? I'm gonna take a little bit of that Reeds shade and just try and clean up. I feel like it's just sticking just a little bit. I'm gonna zoom you guys in just a little bit more. Okay, and I'm gonna turn my light down just a little bit because we're getting so much sunlight. Hopefully the lighting is better there. Okay, dipping back into Roots, that brown shade. I will say on the eye, it isn't showing up quite as warm as I was expecting. I feel like this actually looks a little bit murkier than I was anticipating. And then again, just dipping into that lightest shade Reeds just to clean up the edges. Okay, I feel like that's blending in quite nicely. I'm gonna do the same on the other side. Okay, I feel like we were able to clean it up to make it work. I actually feel like I wanna bring this up just a little bit more on this eye. I'm literally going to a kids' PTO carnival tonight, so I'm like, we don't need to be, I feel like I'm gonna be just like way too done up and feel awkward about it, but that's okay. Okay, I'm like, do I wanna lean into, do I wanna go like warm with it? I feel like the shade is just like deeper. I think I'm gonna try and go warm with it though. So I'm gonna take the shade, actually I'm gonna take the shade Clay first, and I'm going to add this into the crease, but keep it a little bit lower than the shade Roots. I'm curious to see how these are going to blend together, just because in the pan Roots looks warm to me, but then on the eyes it doesn't. I don't think I like necessarily the way that those are blending together. I don't think I like that at all. Am I gonna have to wipe my makeup off? I really don't want to. I do not feel like I should have. I don't know. And I also feel like the orange is like so randomly dispersed. Like you can not see it here. Wipe that eye off, and then we started back over, and I just have Roots in the crease. So we're gonna commit to something a little bit grungier and a little bit murkier. I don't know if this is showing not quite as warm because I had this shade laid down as a base. I honestly don't know, but sometimes looks just don't go as planned. Okay, I don't want to necessarily repeat shades that I've already used. So that means we're gonna go into the shade Murky right here, which I feel like is so fitting, as I keep saying that green shade. I feel like this shade will be really fitting, seeing as I keep saying that green shade is reading much more murky on the eyes and less warm than in the pan. Okay, I do feel like this murky shade is definitely giving like swamp water vibes, which I really love for like a grungy fall look. Then I'm gonna just dip back into Roots and slowly basically try and build up the outer corner with that shade Murky. I honestly feel like I just blended that all away. So we're going back in. And I feel like Murky isn't like that much deeper on the eyes than Roots. So like they're blending in fine, but they almost like look one and the same, which is so weird because in the pan Murky just looks so much deeper. But I do feel like Murky is definitely adding some green to it, whereas Roots was just like a straight, just murkier brown shade. And I love how I say I'm gonna stay away from greens and try and do like a just brown look, you know? Maybe we'll have to do 4 looks with this palette because I definitely have something in mind with like this quad of shades. But then maybe I'll do something with the warm, with the warm browns, clay and sludge. Maybe we will have to do that. I will say I'm not noticing like the weird creasing issues on my outer corner right now. Just taking a cleaner brush and going in with that lightest shade that I set my lids with. Okay, I just don't feel like my eyes are like even at all, and I know I always complain about that, but like, I don't know, there's something that feels a lot more green about this one, and also I'm like, ugh, clearly I have a little fallout there. Okay, I feel like I'm just getting frustrated and overthinking this. I'm gonna add my glitter glue and then we're gonna figure out which special shades we're putting on the lids. Okay, I'm tapping that glitter glue pretty much on the whole lid. Okay, this is definitely reading very like army green. This is not brown like we thought it was going to be, but I have my glitter glue down. I'm gonna reach into the shade Swamp, which is a really beautiful like deep bronzy shade. I'm gonna put that on the outer corner, not quite touching the outer corner, but pretty close. That looks really beautiful. Okay, then I want to take, oh, this is so tough. Next, I think I want to take this shade, which is in Fungi, which is like a really beautiful kind of champagne shade. And I'm gonna bring this all over the lid and almost all the way in, but leaving just a little bit of space because I'm gonna put the shade Wilderness there, which will add a little bit more green to the look. But we could just, I mean, we could just fully commit. This is a very beautiful champagne shade. I do really like that. Okay, I feel like it's feeling like an eerie forest on my lids. I am next gonna take this shade Wilderness, which looks like a really beautiful kind of gold green shift. And I'm gonna put that on the inner part of my eye here and bring it in just a little bit, layering just a little bit on that champagne shade. That is an absolutely stunning shade. I absolutely am living for that. Sometimes I wonder if people can like hear me, like if they're walking by my apartment door, if they can hear me and how weird they think I am. Oh my gosh, I love that Wilderness shade. Okay, I'm gonna go in with my little pencil brush from What's Up Beauty, and I'm gonna try and, especially on this side, try and just bring that up a little bit more and really get that into the inner corner and then have it really connect up my eye. I'm gonna take a little bit more of the shade Fungi and tap that just over the eye again, just to try and kind of blend everything together just a little bit better. I know I like take mine way far up and I don't know if it's working for me. I was like, in some looks I feel like it does, in this one I'm like, I don't know that it's really working for me too well. But the reason I do that is because when I look straight on, it's like hard to see much of the shimmer. Anyway, like, do I need to bring, part of me feels like I need to bring a little bit more of Swamp up a little bit. Okay, I feel like I should quit before I just really screw things up. I'm gonna just take a clean brush. I'm not gonna add any more shadow of any kind, and I'm just gonna try and like blend everything together so it doesn't feel like so harsh. Okay, that did work for the most part. I feel like I want to go in with a little bit more of Wilderness. Then I think I'm gonna take a liquid liner and tight line. There's definitely fallout on my face. I'm like, ugh. Oh, and inevitably I screwed up on this eye, tight lining, always. Just gonna have to roll with the punches on this one. I'm gonna use that same eyeliner I used earlier. It probably needs a sharpen. High Vibe. Okay, and then for the lower lash line, I'm just gonna take the shade Roots and smudge that out on the lower lash. Okay, I'm gonna take my pencil brush again, and I'm actually gonna go in with the shade Reeds, sorry, which is the shade I used to set my lids. And I'm gonna bring this down on the like lower lash, maybe just of like a fourth of the way in. I really like the way that that highlights the inner corner. Okay, yeah, I think that is so pretty for an inner corner highlight, and just to kind of like brighten up like the center of the lid, like Do you get what I'm saying? Okay, I'm gonna add mascara and then we will have a final look. I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little nervous about this one, mostly just because I know I'm wearing it to my daughter's school for the PTO carnival. And I'm like, it's probably a little much for that. It also took us a little while to get here. We're looking very like, I don't know about I don't know about how high I brought up the shimmers with this one. I'm feeling a little self-conscious. And also it never helps that I had to wipe an eye off. I feel like when you get to the point where you like have to wipe an eye off, like clearly you're a little frustrated, which just kind of like honestly makes the rest of the process a little bit stressful, and usually just makes me even more impatient than I already am. A little more frustrated. Maybe I don't like things as much as maybe I would have had I not been frustrated. And now I'm like, did I also get mascara up here? Sure did. Maybe I should slow down. Okay, here is the look with mascara. Here is the final look. Hopefully you can like see it with the sunlight. Honestly, it's very shimmery, very sparkly. I feel like it may be like, I feel like the shimmer is just a little too high up on the lids. Yeah, we probably brought the shimmer too high up on the lids. But it is what it is, and I will say in terms of the shimmers, I'm so impressed with the shimmers, as I always am with Cosmic Beauty. I feel like this palette more than any other palette just kind of speaks to my soul in terms of like the colors I love in a shimmer, and I am so impressed with all of the shimmers in this palette. I think Fungi is such a beautiful champagne shade, and I really enjoyed the shade Wilderness for like almost like a green to gold flip. I think that is so pretty. Obviously this look did not turn out to be a brown look. We have another grungy green look, but I do think that this differs obviously quite a bit from the previous look that we did, and I do like this overall. I think it's a pretty look overall, especially for like, again, kind of like those grungier fall foresty vibes. Really beautiful. I again am not noticing the creasing with the mattes like I did with the previous one, but obviously did not like the way that these two warmer brown shades mixed with the shade Roots. So we ended up using 5 new shades with this look, and we had 8, so we're at 13 out of 20. We've got 7 more eyeshadows to get use out of. I'm really excited to create a look with like this quad of shades, and then I want to try something again with the warm browns for a more neutral look. And then I think the only thing I don't have a plan for is the shade Algae right here. But I did also really want to highlight again just how much I like the shade Reeds for an inner corner highlight. I think that's such a fun, it's almost like a pale yellow green. It's very beautiful. So this is the second look. You guys will have to let me know what you think of the second look down below, and now let's get on to look number 3. All right, you guys, we are back for the third look using the Undergrowth palette, and for this look I really want to focus on this quad of shades and kind of see what happens. I actually might end up doing a 4th look. I think I mentioned that last look, and I should have time to film a 4th look, so I think I might do that. But I'm gonna start today's look out by going in with this kind of like minty, I don't even know how to describe this shade. I wouldn't even call it a mint, almost like a pistachio shade. This is in the shade Herbarium. I don't know. But I am just going to take that shade in the crease and bring that shade up. I did prime my eyes today using the Urban Decay primer potion, and I did actually set my lids using the like lid setting shade out of the Persona Identity palette. So we will see how things blend out on this today. Quick update, I definitely had way too much makeup on at the PTO carnival, but my daughter did get a play date out of it. Like, didn't scare the parents off too much, so that is very exciting. And I will say right off the bat with this shade, it is not super pigmented. It's actually quite a bit lighter on the eyes than I was even anticipating, and I feel like this would also make a really beautiful kind of matte inner corner just based on how not pigmented this is. I would be curious to see how this shade would show up on even like someone who's like a little bit deeper complected than me. I really hope the look that I have in mind turns out just based on, I thought this shade was going to be a little bit deeper, but that is okay. Okay, I'm gonna just pause right here. A part of me wants to reach for this like Kermit the Frog shade, but that's really not what I had envisioned for this look. I'm gonna stick to my guts. I'm gonna dip into the shade Nettle, and I'm gonna bring this into the outer corner. I will say Nettle in the pan, yeah, it does look green. Okay, then I'm actually gonna take a little bit denser of a brush, but I'm gonna go back into the shade Herbarium, and I'm just gonna use that to kind of blend these two together more seamlessly. Okay, and then I'm just gonna keep kind of doing that same thing, going into Nettle and then blending out again with Herbarium until I kind of get like the depth I'm looking for. I will say the lighter shade, it's so awkward to keep saying that shade name because I don't feel like I'm saying it right. It does feel just kind of like almost, I don't want to say like a chalky shade, but a little bit drier. But I do kind of like the way that these two are blending with one another. Like I like the blend, or kind of like the shade that it's turning into, if that makes any sense. Oh no, I had bad follow here. Made the mistake of trying to wipe it away with a finger, and now I have definitely green happening there. Okay, the one thing I will say is, as I said, I do like the way that those two colors are blending into one another, but I also do kind of feel like this Nettle shade almost loses too much of its depth. I mean, it could be that I'm layering it with like a really light shade, but I almost feel like it's like I'm having to build too many layers, and it's kind of like, I don't want to say blending away into nothing, because it's definitely not blending away to nothing, but I don't think this is my favorite experience I've ever had with a cosmic brushes with their mattes specifically. That's not to say I don't really like I think that color story is really beautiful. I'm like, I know that the look I created it using Nettle before, maybe it's the shade Nettle I just don't like that much. I don't know, could be that. I'm also really annoyed that I have this like green mark down on my cheek. Okay, maybe I just won't like blend over it as much as I have been. Yeah, I don't think this is my favorite matte formula I've ever worked with. I'm gonna pause because I can feel myself getting a little frustrated. I feel like that shade Nettle, I think, is just not my favorite shade to work with. So anyway, I'm gonna add my glitter glue. Okay, and then what my vision for the lids is to use this on the like outer half, and then I really wanna focus the shade Vegetation on like the inner corner. So I'm gonna take Undergrowth, which is this shade right here, which looks like a really beautiful shifty shade. And I'm just gonna use my finger because that seems to be the easiest. Okay, that is an absolutely stunning shade. That is so smooth too. Oh, that is just like green foil on the lids. Wow. I'm gonna take this one pretty far in, and then using my pinky, I'm gonna take the shade Vegetation, which looks like a really beautiful kind of minty, which isn't always my favorite, but a metallic mint maybe I can do. And I'm gonna take that on the inner corner. I do like that. Definitely not my favorite shade in the palette, and that's just because I'm not like a mint loving gal, but I do think that it does look really pretty by the shade Undergrowth. I also think a really pretty look, if you wanted to do something a little bit lighter and more subtle, is to just do like these two shades right here. That would be really pretty. Okay, I actually think I want to take just a little bit of this shade Algae right here. I'm like, am I gonna regret this? Ooh, I definitely got that like on the outer. I definitely got that in a place I didn't mean to. But I'm going to use the shade Algae to kind of clean things up a little bit. Okay, and I do really like, you can't see it like super well, but I feel like the shade Algae is actually a really pretty kind of Kermit the Frog sort of green. I think I actually wish I had used Algae and then done like maybe the Herbarium shade, the really light shade, like on the lower lash, or just done that as like an inner corner highlight. I do really like the shade Algae. I like that a lot. Okay, I'm gonna take a little bit more of Undergrowth and just bring that up a little bit. Yeah, I don't love a mint. I'm like, I think the shade's pretty, but I am just not a mint girl. There is something that I just do not like about a mint on my eyes. I don't know what it is. Mints are not for me, but that shade Undergrowth is so pretty. Yeah, this is definitely not my favorite look, and I feel like a big part of it is because I just do not like a mint. But I'm gonna actually take the closest shade to a mint, Herbarium. I'm gonna see what that looks like smudged, at least on the like first third of the lower lash. Okay, we're not getting a lot. In fact, I got more on my nose here than I did anything. Okay, that like literally doesn't blend onto the lower lash line. Okay, I'm gonna take a little bit of Algae then. Or sorry, yeah, Algae. And see how this does. I definitely need to do another look with this palette because I can tell, like if I end with this look, I feel like I'm gonna have a sour taste in my mouth about this palette. And really, I just feel like I've struggled with a few of the mattes. And then I really just am not a mint lover. I don't mind the, there's not any issues with the quality. I just do not like mints. Okay. This is not a favorite look, but I'm gonna add mascara so we can just finish this one and be done with it. Mascara is on. This is the final look. Definitely not my personal favorite, but I will say the standout of this look to me is this shade right here, which is in Undergrowth. And honestly, even though I currently am like feeling a little frustrated with the palette specifically, I think I am just not getting along with the shade Nettle. And then Vegetation is definitely not going to be a most used shade for me, just because, again, nothing against the shade, I just don't like mints and teals. But already, what I will say after these three looks is I'm just literally so impressed and drooling over these special shades. Like all of the non-matte shades in this palette, I feel like are so special and so fun, and just like a fun take on like neutral greens. Like, oh, I feel like I will reach into this palette for the non-matte shades so frequently, just because I feel like even though like I have a lot of green palettes, I feel like these shades truly are like unique to my collection and just add something so special to kind of shades like this. I think tomorrow morning I'll wake up early and I'm gonna do a look with Clay, Sludge, and then I still need to use Quadriceps for that's the only metallic shade I haven't used yet. So we'll create a look using that. Those are the three shades I have left to use in the palette, so may as well just knock it out, do a fourth look with you guys. But yeah, you guys will have to let me know what you think. Do you love mints? Do you think you would like the mint look? Let me know. But let's get on to the fourth and final. Welcome back to a fourth look using the Undergrowth palette. I feel like I've already kind of spoiled / said what I want to do, but I really want to focus on Clay and Sludge and see what we can do to create like a non-green look. Like, can it be done with this palette? I don't know. I think I'm going to start by using Clay, and I'm gonna start to blend that into the crease, but I'm gonna not try and bring it up like as high as I would if it was a little bit lighter. And then I will probably end up using the shade Reeds, which is the lightest shade in the palette, to blend it out. But I'm a little nervous to do that because it is like the cream colored shade that has a bit of a greenness to it. So I'm like, oh, if I really want to see if I can do like a completely non-green look, then I maybe shouldn't use that to blend it out. I did use the Urban Decay Primer Potion again, and I did set the crease using my Persona Identity one, just again the lid setting shade in that palette. And so far right off the bat, I do feel like this shade is blending out quite easily. And I actually think to just blend out the just blend out the like upper brow bone, I'm just using my Fenty Beauty powder foundation. So like just any powder that you would potentially have. that's more of just like a lid shade, just because I truly do want to see if we can keep this. I mean, not that I'm anti-green at all, but just in case you were curious if you can do something with this palette that is not green at all. Okay, that shade did indeed blend out quite easily. I'm then going to take Sludge, and I'm going to focus that on the outer third / outer corner of the lids. And Sludge appears to be a really beautiful kind of mid-toned, warm tone brown. I really like that shade, especially mixed with, what is it, clay? So far, so good for this combo. Yeah, those two are blending together very easily. I'm just gonna dip back into clay and clean up the outer edge here. And clearly those two layer quite nicely on one another as well. Okay, we love when things blend easily, right? Okay, we're gonna call it good for now, and we're gonna add the glitter glue. I do really enjoy the way that those two shadows blended together, just for a really beautiful, kind of deeper, sultry, warm, brown, smoky eye. And honestly, that was like really quick to kind of blend those two shades together. It didn't take a lot of time to like build it, blend it. I know right now it's looking a little crazy, but it's all gonna come together. We have to trust the process, right? I'm gonna take the shade Cordyceps right here, which looks to be a really beautiful gold. I believe this is the only shade left in the palette that we haven't used. I'm gonna tap this on the center of the lid, bringing it in. Again, leaving about a third of the inner corner without it. And that is just a really beautiful kind of metallic gold. I'm not someone who reaches for golds all that frequently. Like, they're definitely not my favorite, like, most used metallic shade, but you know, a gold really does work from time to time. Okay, and then for the inner part of the lid, I think both Fireflies, which is kind of that, like, I feel like I would consider that a multi-chrome. It's like a gold to green to peachy pink shift. That would be so beautiful on the inner corner, but I actually think I'm gonna go with Wilderness, which is not quite as shifty as Fireflies. And I'm just going to tap that on the inner third of the lid. And that adds like a touch of green without being like wham bam in your face, like a green look. Like, I feel like this is like a neutral look with a pop of green. And like, it's only green if it catches the light just right. But I do really, really love that Wilderness shade. I think that is such a stunning shade. To change up the eyeliner just a little bit, I'm gonna go with the Nabla Cupid's Arrow in the shade 7, which is kind of like a warm brown. Okay, and then I'm not gonna lie, I'm like tempted to take the shade Reeds as an inner corner. I just feel like, I know I already kind of brought in Wilderness to the inner corner, but I'm gonna add just a little bit of Reeds as well. And I'm gonna take Reeds about a third of the way in on the lower lash. I don't know why I like the shade Reeds so much for like an inner corner highlight, especially if you're wanting to commit to a matte. Just because it's almost like a matte, because it is a matte cream with like just a hint of a green. And I feel like if you looked at it, like to the naked eye, it'd almost be like, okay, is that a cream or am I noticing a bit of green? And then for the rest of the lower lash, I'm going to take the shade Clay and just smudge that along the lower lash line. I will say I'm not totally in love with like my foundation today, so I'm like, ugh, kind of throws it off a bit. And as per usual, my eyes just are not even, and it really annoys the crap out of me. Like, it actually makes me so freaking angry. And I know I need to just get over it, because I honestly just don't think I'll ever be able to make them look even. And I probably notice it more than anyone else because I look at my face the most. Okay, I zoomed you out a little bit more, but this is the fourth and final look. I know I bring my shimmer up really high, but it's just because my eyes, like, lids cave in on themselves. One thing I will say is so first of all, I always have a shadow right here. It annoys me. That's not the shadow, the actual eyeshadow, but I did notice some fallout. I didn't try and clean it up the best. But I don't know if you'll be able to tell, like I definitely am noticing like a little bit of patchiness. A little bit of patchiness on both sides where those shades are layered. So I feel like there were a few matte layering issues with this palette. Specifically, I did really struggle with Nettle, and then I am not loving, like I like the way that those two like overall blended together. And again, I don't know if it's like my eyes, but there is definitely a little bit of patchiness on the outer corner. So just something to keep in mind. I will say of all my Cosmic Beauty palettes, I haven't started testing the Cool Trolls palette yet, but this might be the one where I've struggled the most with the mattes. And that's not to say it's like bad quality mattes. I've just, you know, I like to point, I literally just made a video ranking Odin's Eye palettes where I ripped them to shreds over their matte formula. So I want to be fair and just say, you know what, a couple of these mattes were a little bit more difficult to work with than other mattes that I've worked with. But overall, I still think that this palette might be one of my favorite green palettes in my entire collection. And if I'm wanting like a green palette with pops of neutral, this is definitely going to be top of mind. What steals the show for me are 100% the special shades in this palette. Every single one of these special shades, with the exception of Vegetation, just because I don't always love a mint, I am just so impressed with. I also don't know that I'll get the most use out of Quadriceps, just because, as I mentioned, I'm not like the biggest gold wearer. But aside from that, I mean, I'm literally drooling over the special shades in this palette. So even for the special shades alone, like, yes. And honestly, just the curation and the way that this palette is laid out, the color story, like I'm very, very pleased with the palette. I just wanted to note that there were just a few issues that I had with a couple of the mattes in the palette. All right, you guys, now that you've seen the 4 looks using the Undergrowth palette, let me give you my final thoughts. I would also love to know what your favorite look was, what your thoughts kind of are on this palette so far. But I will say my like first impression off of using every shade in this palette is that I definitely have struggled more with the mattes in this palette, and not all of the mattes, but definitely some of the mattes. More than my experience with other Cosmic Beauty palettes. Now, I don't know if some of that is just like some of these shades are more difficult to create, but I do feel like the edge of Sludge and Clay like definitely have some patchiness there, and it seems to be just in my outer corner where I'm getting this patchiness. So honestly, you guys, it could be a me problem, but I definitely did struggle with the shade Nettle as well, this deep green. Aside from that, I am really happy with the shades. The only thing is, I will say I'm not a mint lover, so like I don't think I'll get the most use out of this shade up here, but these special shades in this palette might be some of my new favorites in my collection. Even just thinking through like more everyday looks, like something that's still like really punchy, but not something that's like a bright also punchy color. Like it's more approachable punchy shades, if you will. I think this is such a beautiful release for this time of year. This is definitely something that I'm thinking, like when I go up north next weekend to see the leaves changing, like this I feel like is the palette that I'm going to be reaching for. There is something about like the Boggy, Undergrowth, Swamp, Fireflies, Wilderness, and Fungi might be my new favorite like neutral leaning special shades in my collection. So I would love to know what your thoughts are on this palette. Did you pick this palette up? Are you thinking about picking it up? Are you skipping it? Do you have it? Do you own it? Have you created looks with it? What has your experience been? Let us all know in the comments below. Other than that, thank you guys so much for sticking around, watching today's video, continuing to support me. I would love to know what other palettes you'd be interested in seeing these like deep dive reviews on, whether it be old palettes or new releases that you're excited about that you'd like to see me review. Let me know in the comments. Other than that, I will catch you guys in my next video. Bye.